Scott, hello everybody, and welcome to, well, what is the last office hours of June? June, wow, 28th, here we are. It's just kind of melting away. July, here we come. So welcome everybody. Uh, Moving right along here. Before we get going, just want to take care of the disclaimer. Make sure everybody in attendance is aware of the fact that all the information that we share with you guys in these webinars is for educational purposes. So what does that mean? Simply means if you need investment advice, please seek out someone who is licensed to legally dispense that type of information to you. Someone like a registered investment advisor, Series 7 licensed stockbroker. Those are two that would do the trick. But just want to reiterate that all the content that we share with you guys is for educational purposes only. Always like to take just a little bit of time here at the top of the hour, especially for the new folks, to let everybody know it's not just the award-winning tech here at TI, but it's also the community that we've built around the tech. And that all kind of starts over here on the left with the trading room hosted by Barry Anderson. Barry opens the doors about 30 minutes before every open, and it is a great place to learn and just be amongst other traders sharing ideas. So it really doesn't matter if you're a beginner, in the middle, or advanced. You have traders from all three categories in there. And it's a great price because it's free, right? So if you have done your research and looked around at different trading rooms on the web, you'll find that most of them worth their salt are not free and they're quite pricey, but this is simply one of the benefits that you get when you become part of the TI family. So take advantage of the trading room if you haven't been doing so already. And of course, on Mondays, you get myself and Steve. Steve's on his well-earned vacation right now, so you just get me today. Steve takes the helm on Tuesdays for the trade of the week. I think we're going to have Mr. Chris Varley filling in for him tomorrow, so you might want to pop in, hear what Chris has to say. It's going to be entertaining, I'm sure. Wednesdays, like to switch it up a bit. We bring in our CEO and founder, Mr. Dan Merkin, along with Brad Williams, typically giving you peeks at new tech coming down the pipeline. And, you just get that Dan and Brad flair in there as well, always entertaining. And he's going to round out the 5 p.m. Eastern webinars with the Trading Studio. And of course, I'm going to ride shotgun with him. And we also have our daily support session, which is Mondays through Fridays, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, where you can come and get answers to questions or, anything TI related is on the table there. Okay, could be configuration issues, could be brokerage plus related. So just keep that in mind. The daily support session is a great place to get your questions answered in a live real-time environment by one of us trader/trainer individuals, and we have a different person on the mic every day. So the next slide will show you how to get there. Pretty simple. trade-ideas.com/live. And the cool part about it is that is a static address. So once you get there, you can bookmark it for easy access moving forward. Same bat time, same bat channel every day. In addition to those resources, we do have a great video series in the form of TI University. Especially if you've subscribed recently, you can do no harm, especially by watching 101 and 201. It's going to take you through all the basics, differences between top list windows, alert windows, configuration, all that good stuff. You can access these videos simply by going to YouTube, finding the Trade Ideas YouTube channel. Just give it a little search for TI University. These videos will come right up so you can watch them at your leisure, stop and start as you desire. But lots of good information in there, get you over that learning curve a lot quicker than not watching these videos. So here we are at today's agenda. Kind of felt like a little summer market day as far as volume goes, but we did have some interesting setups as always. AI did pretty well today as well. Compare count readings, let's just jump in and take a little look. As some of you may or may not remember from last Monday, the compare counts weren't really a whole lot of help in picking market direction. Of course, today is a different day, a different Monday, and they were a little bit helpful today. So those of you who attend on the regulars know what this window is looking at, but if you are new, what is this compare count window doing? And you might be asking yourself, well, also, what is a compare count window? So if I just click over here on the TI toolbar, click on new, you can see compare count window. Let's see, these are in chronological order as they were invented. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was the 5th window that we ever created, all right? And it was pretty much spawned from this old metric that's been around forever, the tick, advancers versus decliners on the big board. So we just took it one step further and said, well, let's give people the ability to create their own tick based on what they want to see as far as a configuration of a strategy. We'll, take stocks hitting highs, stocks hitting lows with a filter set, and we can compare those inverse strategies. So this one is pretty simple. I'll just pull it over here real quick, the real thing. We'll take a little peek here. We have a green data side and a red data side. So just looking at stocks hitting highs and lows with this exact same filter set here, really it's basically just looking at any stock hitting a high with some accelerated 1-minute volume in that opening 15 minutes where the market cap is 4 billion or higher. Okay, so trying to get a bead on what the higher cap stocks are doing in that opening 15 minutes. Is there more buying or is there more selling? And this is what we got after the first 15 minutes today. Pretty significant downside count. 56% of those stocks were hitting highs and lows. Give me 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. I got a British guy chirping in my ear over here from IB, so I'm just gonna kill that window. There we go. So a pretty decent bearish count, and the way this usually plays out is we could have the move happen immediately, and sometimes it saves it for the latter part of the day. But if I just push this down for a second and we take a look at the SPY, we can see these are 15-minute candles, and we can see right here into the first 15-minute candle, we did bounce a little higher, only to go down here and put in the lows. So pretty good bead on short-term market direction. Peeling off down here, if we take a look at the daily, we can see we just kind of took a little excursion to the low, not quite the low, but the low of the candle body from Friday. Hey, and lo and behold, we typically let Steve do the market recap, but I'm sure a lot of you remember what was being discussed last Monday. We've had a nice little upturn here, and by last Friday, we were kind of joking about it on Monday. Hey, probably new highs by last Friday, and sure enough, that's what we had, just by a smidge, and then we got a higher high today. So just kind of more of the same, not a whole lot to add to the overall direction of the market. Looking bullish, not really a bearish case to be made at this point in time. So I'm sure they're busting out the party hats over at CNBC like they always do. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't really watch that anymore. In any case, looking strong for tomorrow's open. We will see what happens. And then of course, this nice little rally off the bottom here. Let's see, what time was that? 12:30. Okay, so for the last 2.5 hours, boy, market was strong, closing up here in all-time high territory. So the bull market is back. Or never really went away. It's just now we're popping all-time highs. Qs the same. Notice what we have here. We've got a little bit of a divergence. Once again, this seems to be like clockwork. One day the SPY will lead the Qs. One day the Qs will take the baton, lead the SPY, and we'll have a little bit of a bifurcation here. Of course, IWM peeling off as well. Still not too far from the tops here. Qs leading the charge, and SPY taking its sweet time. So will we get back into the mode where we see all of these things go in tandem? Your guess is as good as mine. We could say more rebalancing, but at this point, I'm not sure that that's really the case as to just what's going on here. Could be a little rebalancing still going on between the SPY and the Qs, repositioning, but it just seems like this is more the norm here lately, is seeing the SPY up and the Q lagging, or seeing the Qs up and the SPY lagging. And typically when we have this scenario too, the IWM is underperforming as well. So just kind of some strange overall market action here. Will we get back to parity? Only time will tell. All right, saw a couple of questions in there. Looks like Scott's knocked them out. So let's just get on back to today's agenda here. All right, so a little bit of help from the compare counts in that initial direction for the market before the big bounce there. And then the Holly recap. I forgot to fill in the symbol number here, but it was relatively low. We only had 7 signals today. A very nice, tame, orderly performance from the AI. So let's just go ahead and jump into the AI and check it out here. I will tell you this before we get into the nitty gritty of looking at the sparse amount of conservative and moderate spread here. Were there any add-on opportunities that just jump out at us? And were there any trade arounds? So first and foremost, once again, in case there are any new people out there wondering what these numbers mean, of course, Ollie 2.0 remaining silent for the day, not getting any signals from there. We had 3 signals from Holly 1.0, otherwise known as Holy Grail, and we had 4 signals from the AI known as Neo. Now, the totals here that you see on the channel bar are based around using 100 shares per trade. That is not what I have here. I have my AI panel configured to risk $100 per trade. And just while we're on that topic here, if I do go to the toolbar and hit Tools, click on Options, and go to AI trade size, this is where you can tell the system how you want to assign your risk or position sizing. Dollars per trade, shares per trade, or as I'm using here, risk-based $100 per trade. So that's what we're seeing in this panel here, along with the values that you see down here. Now, what I'm going to point out here is, I don't know if it's the slower market or what exactly caused this to happen today, but it's very rare that we see all 3 risk modes kicking out about the same value here. Conservative, 447.84, moderate, 484, and if we were using no stops and just letting everything do its thing until the close, which isn't recommended, but we just like to show you what would happen if that was the case. Aggressive, slightly less, right? But all still relatively close in the 400s. Once again, conservative 447, moderate 484, and even aggressive coming in at 432. If I had to guess, it's just the kind of slow nature of the market, but not a bad performance from the AI on a slow day and a very low number of trades. If I had my choice, I'd rather only see 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 signals from the AI to get the job done. But of course, sometimes we have 15 or 20, right? But we could just say that the AI was very efficient today. And interestingly enough, not even one stop out. If we look at the exit reasons here, no stops, okay? And typically, if we're looking at a trade around, that's typically going to be generated by a trade that the AI was in which we were stopped out. And then we would look and see, I'll just pull up SoFi here, even though it's not a stop out. This was a short that was in the money a little bit only, and then the AI closed it out in, let's see here, reduce risk mode right here, pretty much for a flat. All right, or $1.21 in profit. Of course, that's before any slippage was calculated. So not a bad exit from the AI. Had the AI stayed in it, then yes, it would have gravitated up here and been stopped out. And then we would have observed how the stock reacted around the stop area. Okay, and typically what we would want to see, since this was a short, was to see it gravitate back down below the stop. Therefore, the stop acting as a pivot point or a little area of resistance there, but not the case here, all right? Stayed well above it and is kind of churned higher for the rest of the day. So not really any good examples here of trade arounds because A, we didn't have any stop outs to look at, which is not necessarily a bad thing. All right, Hemindra, I see your question there. As soon as I get through the Holly recap, I will soak it up and see if I can be of use to you there. So the other things that we like to discuss here, any spread between conservative and moderate profit, and could we have possibly gleaned a little bit of that. And so we can see here today in the GBT short and the SNR long, and I really like this too. The biggest winners of the day, we had one good short, we had one good long, making up the bulk of the gains. Not too shabby. There is a little bit of spread here on the GBT short and a little bit of spread here on the SNR long. So let's just go ahead and take a look at those trades real quick here. All right, GBT coming fairly early in the day, and we can see over here about 5 minutes and 35 seconds into the open, and in conservative mode, Holly was only in the trade for roughly 14 minutes before the target was hit. We always like seeing targets get hit. So pretty simple, AI signal coming here, and this thing just acted like a good trade should. Just not really any pain involved here, not really any tempting of the stop loss area, just going down like hopefully a good short will, and hitting that profit target pretty quickly here. So a little bit of money left on the table here. Let's see, I got my exit price right here, so 33.69, coinciding right about here where we see the profit target, obviously. But this little guy took a header on down to 32.50. So between here and here, there was about another point on the table if you felt like holding that thing. Of course, into the close, we're only looking at about 63 more cents. So at the bottom down here, we could have tacked on about another 130 points, or excuse me, $130 since we were in 130 shares. But of course, not a bad exit nonetheless. A little bit of here, a little bit more here down to the bottom, or even if you close it out somewhere halfway, getting pretty close to what Holly has showing here going into the close. So even if you max the trade out, we're only looking at another $70 based on what we're seeing in moderate profit here. I also see your question, Brock, as well. I'll go ahead and answer that one real quick. The question is, when can we expect the TD Ameritrade integration into Brokerage Plus to be released? I would very much love to give you a date. Unfortunately, all I know from where I sit is that the developers are currently working on that that port to TD Ameritrade. As of yet, there is no hard ETA, but hopefully sooner than later. Like I said, I'd love to give you a date and a time, but I just don't have enough information to do so right now. Infidelity, William, I don't even know if that one is in the developer's queue right now, but I'd be more than happy to check on that for you. Okay, so that was a look at the GBT short. Now let's take a look at the long that was delivered in the form of SNR. What a well-behaved stock. Now, a couple things catch my eye here. I'm gonna go ahead and put a line here from the initial high that was put in the first 15 minutes. We'll go ahead and put one here at the low. Both the high and the low came in that opening, well, not really the widest range opening candle there, but a nice little gap up and pretty juicy little range in that opening 15 minutes with a couple of tails on it there. So that's the high and the low, and then we get range bound, okay? Seen this song and dance many times before. Then we get that Holly signal coming right about, well, right at 867. And when I see this happen, number one, I'm like, okay, what do we have first on our checklist? Well, we've got statistical viability from Holly. That's what she does, delivering us statistically viable signals. But then doesn't take, you know, a whole lot of squinting here to see what might happen after that AI signal, okay? And of course, my eyes are drawn to this level right here, which could mean, well, once we break this range right here, that's an opening range break and we might be off to the races. So it did, it broke the orb or the opening range break as we call them, but then it just kind of flatlined for the rest of the day. So normally this is where I would add on to a position. And even if we would have taken that ad, it probably just would have ended up flat on the day. We would have attempted to leverage the position. Just didn't really do a whole lot of good because a lot of the steam was taken out of SNR on this very significant gap here. All right, so that's not unusual for a stock that is experienced a large gap. If it doesn't give it back, a lot of the times it'll just toe the line for the rest of the day, and that's what we had in SNR. So it looked like a great opportunity to leverage the position. A lot of times it works. Don't see these very often, but this one just pretty much towed the line today. So I tell you what though, SNR will be on my radar for tomorrow, and if it maintains this gap and we open higher or open at the top of this candle and we do get a little consolidation on the morrow, well then tomorrow it might have a little bit more steam in it. So if this same pattern presents itself in tomorrow's trading, it might be worth taking a stab at. So that's one to keep on your radar. And that topic is also going to coincide with what we're going to talk about here shortly, about creating an AI prior top list to keep tabs on the prior AI signals that are still maintaining decent volume, but we'll get to that in just a second here. So once again, AI closing the trade out on a good note because the profit target was hit relatively quickly. So once again, we had no stop outs, but we had two back-to-back targets hit here. So 199, according to Holly, in conservative mode, 1021 is the exit time. So let's just see here. There's my, I was wondering where my shaded area was there. Okay, so Holly closing it out right as this candle begins. And if she would have stayed in it for the remainder of the day, or if you or I would have, we could have gleaned another 60 bucks or so by the time that the close had rolled around. So while we do have some spread here, not mammoth, not maximum, but spread nonetheless, a teensy little bit of spread in KBH, not really even worth going into detail about, over the $12 that we could have had holding this until, you know, the AI exited at 15 minutes to the close. Yeah, so we could have got a little bit, you know, we could have made another $12 in this little last 15-minute green candle. Nothing to write home about. Other than that, just a few small winners, one small loser here. So not a bad day for the AI as far as the number of trades and the amount of profit that was generated. Not bad for Holly today. All right, so before we progress to the next topic here, just want to read this question and see if I can answer it real quick here. Give me 1 second. Okay, Hemindra, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think an email was forwarded to me with this same question, and you were asking me if I could address it in today's webinar. Either that or you and another person had the exact same question. But the question is, and I'll do my best to summarize this here. It's regarding the stop loss, okay? Okay, so it was you. Yes, perfect, okay. So the question here is, so, and correct me if, again, if I'm misinterpreting your question here, but when we do develop a strategy, whether we configure it or whether it's an AI strategy, we always have to have a stop loss, okay? So that if we're wrong, we lose what we're supposed to lose, or what's, you know, palatable to us. So really the question is, should you adjust your stop loss sometimes? Meaning sometimes, okay, it's coming down to my stop loss. Here's a good example. Let's see, I'll just pull something up at random. Let's see, where's my stop loss on this one? Okay, well, let's just play, you know, devil's advocate here for a minute. GBT never even encroached on its stop loss area because it just went straight down, but the stop loss area is here on the red line, okay? So what if GBT started grinding up here and was getting close to its stop, and based on what I was seeing on the long term, or maybe the daily or the weekly, I'm thinking to myself, well, it's going to stop me out. So maybe I should just pull my stop and give it another 2 or 3 pennies, right? And sometimes, you know, everybody sitting out there in the audience has more than likely been stopped out by a penny only to see the trade go your way, right? It's happened to me countless times, whether it's 1 penny or 2 pennies. I mean, it just barely tickles your stop, okay? And sometimes we're gonna, you know, depending on who you are, you might cancel that stop. And you were right that time. Other times it's going to hurt you. Okay. So in a nutshell, stop losses are there for a reason. It's very painful when we see something get stopped out by a penny or a few pennies, and then it turns and would have been a big winner, whether that's a short trade or a long trade, doesn't really matter. But in the long term, and I can tell you this because I have been interacting with the AI in the E-Trade Live environment, okay? And, a lot of the times I'll close a position out. And sometimes, over a 5-week period, what I've discovered, and I knew this already going in based on prior experience, sometimes I'm going to hurt the system. Sometimes I'm going to detract from performance. Other times I'm going to improve performance, right? But in the end, I'm probably better off just sticking to the protocol, right? If I'm going to hurt sometimes and I'm going to help sometimes, but in the end, I'm only going to have impact of a very small percentage to the positive or the negative, then it seems to me like it would be a much easier path for me from a mental perspective to just let things run like they're supposed to, okay? Because I can tell you this, over the long term, that that taxes you a lot mentally, okay? And then there's always the, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Or look, you might get a false sense of entitlement going, well, for 3 times in a row, it's worked for me. But then guess what? Law of averages. Then you're going to get 3 times in a row where it hurts you. But the bottom line is over a 20-day, which is a month, or a 40-day period, I think unless you really have an edge that's working and that's worked over and over again, that in the long term, second guessing yourself is a very bad mental state to put yourself in, especially when we're talking about the trading game, right? Um, so Hamindra, I hope that sheds a little light on what I perceive uh, to be the proper path as far as sticking to your stop losses, right? Which brings up another interesting topic, and I saw this topic being talked about a lot on Twitter. Let me give you a simple example, and I'll just bring up the back tester to do this. When we're back testing a strategy, of course, keep in mind, ours is a statistical back tester, right? So we're just trying to create statistical viability of a large or a small sample of trades to give us a general idea of what might work as far as stop losses go in a strategy. And when we come over here to risk management, we can, configure our stop losses either in dollars or percentage, which over a large sampling period is good information to have. Okay, I'm going to give all of these trades a 3% stop loss or a 2-point stop loss. Okay, that's one way to do it. But really over the longer term, whether it's intraday or swing trading, looking at the longer time frames, the daily or the weekly, we really want to configure our stop losses according to the chart, right? So for example, on GBT today, I tell you what, notice how we're getting into this area of congestion back here. Way back here, of course, it's kind of hard to tell exactly where the line is, but GBT, in my opinion, is getting close, is getting very close to finding some support, right? So let me just look at the weekly here. Try to get a little bit clearer of a picture. Okay, so still looking a little jumbled up here. Okay, but just, okay, there we go. Thank you for lagging. All right, so now we can, we can see these areas back here, they might act as support. GBT might be done going down, but it might have another point or so. Maybe it wants to take an excursion down to the wick of this candle over here, which would be 30.25, and here we sit at 33.21, right? So GBT might complete this little cycle tomorrow, or it might find some resist or some support right here, okay? But I can tell you this, if I thought GBT was done going down, Would I set an arbitrary stop loss of some percentage or some point value? Well, I might set one based on a point value, but based on what the chart is telling me here. Like this might be the bottom. If we're going to go down to the bottom of this weekly candle, and then I see way back over here some support on the weekly or some potential support, then yeah, I would calculate the difference between here if I wanted to take a stab long, and then my stop loss would be just somewhere slightly outside of, I don't know, 30.90 or somewhere below these candles here. But I'd be basing my stop loss on what I'm seeing on the long-term chart, trying to identify a level that could potentially act as support. So whether you're doing this on the longer term, the weekly or the daily, or what's developed on the intraday thus far, outside of Holly, because Holly is a statistical animal, okay? So it's calculating its intraday stops based on the strategies that make the cut. But when we're just trying to pick and choose our own trades based on our various windows that we're, using in trade ideas and trying to assess stop losses, then you're better off making the trade fail and penetrate support if it's a long, or violate areas of potential supply if it's a short trade. So hopefully you got a little bit out of that, Hermindra. Okay, got an AI question. The question is, can you provide a quick overview of how the AI stocks are selected and limited in count? No problem. Okay, so where do the AI trades come from? Well, as you can see, all the trades today are here, right? They're issued in real time as they come out. And then down here, this is the AI strategy panel. So these are all the strategies that made the cut for today. So if we just do a quick count, we had 3 shorts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 7 longs. So we had a total of 10 strategies that made the cut. Now, these are the strategies that after all of the analysis that was done as of the close Friday, okay? So this is the way the AI goes through its protocol, all right? So even as we speak right now, the AI is back testing its core strategies. And then once it's done back testing them, it starts to optimize each and every one. And the core is it's always fluctuating a little bit, but we'll just call it anywhere between 35 and 40 strategies. That's the number of strategies that the AI has in its core, and it's a culmination of longs and shorts. So after we upload all the tick data from every stock in the market today, then the AI starts its calculations. We've developed a proprietary scoring system. So once all the optimization is done and the AI tries to improve upon each strategy and the back test is complete after optimization, a score is assigned to each strategy, and only the ones that make the minimum score make the cut for tomorrow's trading. So out of the 35 or 40 strategies that are being back tested and optimized right now, unknown how many are going to make the cut just yet, because it takes a good while for all those calculations to be done. I think probably around 8 o'clock Eastern time is usually when it finishes. So that's when you'll see the new strategies for tomorrow's sessions show up. So that's how the AI arrives at the strategies each and every day. But just because a strategy makes the cut doesn't mean it's going to fire off a trade. Notice 1, 2, 3, only 4 strategies of all the ones that made the cut today produce trades. All of these guys produce no trades because the specific filter set and the alert were not met. So the strategy has to fire, otherwise there are no trades. And these filter sets get pretty complex with these AI strategies. So filters are always working in that all or none capacity. So a lot of these strategies will have 15, 20 or more filters with a specific alert attached. So it's a very specific thing that has to be met with the AI strategies in order for them to fire. Let's see, my questions panel scrolled on me there. Give me a second. Okay, so Michael, hopefully that gives you a little info on how the AI produces its strategies and which ones make the cut. And just because they make the cut doesn't necessarily mean that they will fire off any trades. All right, Jim, I see your question as well. That's not the obvious. Right, Jim. If I'm reading your question or your response properly there, it's just, when we zoom out on the longer term charts, then our stop areas become quite obvious, right? Sometimes they're a little bit big, and if they're bigger than we would like, well, then typically in order to, get around that, we just shrink our share size to accommodate, the wiggle that would be necessary in order to stay in a trade. All right, so I think we're caught up now. If I did miss anybody, please resubmit the question or just tell me to back up and I'll be happy to do that. And we will cruise on to the next topic here. So what I was alluding to earlier, AI priors. Building a top list with the AI trades from the prior 2 weeks. That's what I've done for today's session. Just kind of pick 2 weeks randomly, don't want to go back too far. Don't want to have too many things in there to watch, but I don't want to have too few things in there to watch. So I just figured 10 trading days would do the trick. And what I found was pretty interesting. And interesting from the volume standpoint, because let's take a look at the tracking ETFs real quick here. How do we finish on relative volume on the SPY? 0.96. Most of this came in the beginning of the session. So let me get this out of the way. So, almost finished at normal volume for the SPY, Q's a little bit above, IWM a little bit above. So we banged out a lot of this volume at the open right here, but a lot came at the close in the last half of the day. So for a large portion of the trading day, these smaller time frames were pretty lackluster. And it's just kind of like the summer settling in on us. So when I show you this list that I produced, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it as well, it's interesting because what I've done here is I've taken all of the signals that Holly generated over the past 2 weeks, not including today. Okay, so when we look on the calendar here, it's basically from the 14th to the 25th, the prior 2 weeks. Okay, so here they all are. I forget how many. Okay, haven't counted them up, but that is the entire list for the past 2 weeks. Now, considering volume has been starting to taper off in the overall markets, check out these relative volume numbers. Okay, I mean, even way down here, we're still at 1.48, but for at least more than half the list, all of these stocks are still trading with pretty decent volume on the relative scale to all the way up to these larger numbers that you're seeing here, which tells me that these stocks are still in play. So why not continue to watch these? And it's not very complex. Matter of fact, it's very simple. All right. A lot of you out there know that I'm a simpleton. Okay, I believe in simplicity being the key to a lot of things. Trading, no exception. All right. So it's real easy to generate this list. First, I'm going to show you how to generate the list. I'm going to share the list for the prior 2 weeks with you guys before we conclude, because I've already got it queued up for you. But moving forward, when this week is done, I'm probably going to do this week and the week prior and just keep the last 2 weeks running to give me fresh ideas for intraday and swing trading in the regular sessions. So first and foremost, how do we archive the last 2 trading weeks for Holly? And my short-term memory is terrible here, so let me just reiterate to myself the 14th to the 25th. Okay, so we right-click here, we go to history, and we just select time frame. So I've already got the numbers plugged in here. And yes, this is a little bit backwards because coders developed it, not traders. So we put the last day here up top and the earlier day at the bottom. So we want to see the history for the 14th to the 25th, encompassing the last 2 weeks, and then we just hit OK. So now we have our list. Okay, stretch this out a little bit where we can see everything. And we don't necessarily have to do this, but let's just see if we can. Okay, looks like we're not going to be able to squeeze the whole list in here, but all I'm interested in, and we can see the dates here. It's always a good idea to check your work. Is the lowest day the 14th and is the highest day the 25th? Then we know that we have the sample that we want. Okay, all we really are focused on here is capturing the symbols. So all we have to do is click up here in the top cell and then just drag all the way down. And it is fortunate because it'll just keep on going for us. So after I've highlighted this entire cell with the symbols in it, all I have to do is give it a Control C on the keyboard. And then we're just going to cruise over here to Tools, Symbol List. Now you can see here's the one that I just created. There are 79 symbols over the past 2 weeks, but if I created a new list and just call it Ollie Test again, then all I have to do here is click on that list, hit edit, and then just give it a Control V, and that's it. That's how we create the list, 79 symbols in there. So easy peasy on creating that symbol list there. And then once we get the window queued up, I just did mine in a simple top list form with just the basics, right? Symbol, price, how many shares has it kicked out today, and relative volume, okay? Now I threw change in 10 days up here just because we're looking at the prior 2 weeks, which is 10 days, okay? So once we have this list and we're pointed to it, let's just make sure we're pointed to the right list, and you can see only the following list, Holly Priors. Sounds like an arrest record. But anyway, you get the idea there. So in a normal trading day, if you're seeing all of these stocks with high volume, you know the volume's there. So then we just have to look and go, might anything happen with this stock today that would pique my interest? All right, whether it's on the daily, and SoFi is a pretty young issue unless that's a rebranding of a symbol. But like for example, if SoFi was on your list early on with big volume, say after the first 15, 30, 45 minutes, comes all the so that's why the list is default sorted by relative volume. We know the volume's there. We check things out. We see if any interesting patterns, either on the intraday or any interesting areas on the daily catch our eye. That's one way to sort for trades using this list. Or maybe we sort by what's up the most, right? I sort change in 10 days. Alf's up 400%. My goodness, look at this thing. Okay, well, if you like to fade things or make contra entries, well, let's see here, top of the candle there, 2250. Now, earlier in the day when I looked at it, we were still up here at 20. It was a little bit more appealing. Hey, this thing might be running out of steam. I might put a short on it, risk about 2 points accordingly, make it pop a new high to get me out. So, you know, another way to spin the data, manipulate it, whether you're looking for shorts, things that are just up these astronomical amounts, and you want to do a little bit of fading, or maybe it's a little bit of bottom picking. PRTK down 35% in the prior 10 days. Okay. Well, kind of looks like it's trying to catch a little bit of support here. We wick down, you know, eyes are gravitating to these areas back here. So finding ones that might be bouncing, finding ones that you might want to short that might be topping out. What I didn't add here is position in 10-day range might also be interesting. So we just show the column. We can, you know, maybe we want to sort by things that are just blasting through 10-day highs. If we see the bar solid, then it's blown through a 10-day high and it's topping out at new highs. If we see a little bit of room here, like on SIGI, it's just a smidge let's see here, give me my value here. It's in the 88th percentile of its 10-day range. Maybe it wants to go to 100, you know, or the exact opposite, PRTK, setting new 10-day lows. Maybe it's time for a bounce based on what we see as far as potential areas of support. So this can be a very handy top list, even though it's relatively simple, no pun intended, on the sort that is relative volume. So a lot of different ways to approach this, but I think it's going to be very eye-opening moving forward. So here's what I'm going to do. Wow, I can't believe we're already 12 minutes up against the top of the hour here. I'm going to share this window. Holly prior top list, and then I'm also going to dump the symbols for the prior 2 weeks in there for you guys as well. So give me 1 second. Select all, Control C, Control V. Okay, and there is the list for the past 2 weeks, not including today. So load that up, create your symbol. Don't forget to come in there and point the top list to your symbol. And as a friendly reminder, when you first create a new symbol and you start looking for it over here, it's not going to be there. So keep in mind when you first create a new symbol, oops, and what I just noticed here, EVM was checked. I did not notice that. So all we want checked is the Holly list. I removed the EV. I didn't see any really big discrepancy there, so that should be fine. But when you first create a new list, it's not going to show up over here. So you have to hit add existing list, find the new one. As soon as you click on it and it turns blue, then it will show up as a checkable list over here. Yeah, Jim, you can easily add short float just by finding it and adding it as a column. Let's just see if anything stands out. Short float growth, short float percentage, show it. Yeah, some decent ones up here. But hey, always good information to have. In addition to that, you could put float up there too to easily identify the low floaters. I mean, you know, the list goes on and on. Just try to develop something simple and then let everybody put their own little flair on it in the form of additional columns. All right, Mike, glad you liked it. Glad you liked it. So I do believe that is going to be it for today, ladies and gents. So load up that list, make your list, pull this cloud link up, attach it to attach the list once you get it. And if I would highly recommend doing this at the end of every week, you know, so that you have a running 2-week total for all of the AI plays, quickly see what the volume is, any interesting levels of support and resistance. And I think this is going to be just another high quality information source to go along with some of your other favorite windows for some decent trades, swing trade or intraday. All right, so I do believe that is it for the day. So Scott, if you're ready to walk us on out, we're ready for you.
All right, thanks, Jamie. Sounds good. Yeah, a couple items I want to remind people of before they leave. We do have a new ebook that we launched like a couple months ago, and want to make sure everyone gets a chance to buy it before we put out our next one. Go to tradeIdeas.com/strategy to get My Favorite Strategy Indicators by Dave Mabe, our Director of Software Development, who created the Hollies and our backtesting module, the Odds Maker, and Brokerage Plus, that kind of good stuff. So do check it out. It's got a lot of good insight in there about how to use Trade Ideas to be successful. You can add us as a podcast, Trade Ideas Podcast, in your favorite app. Check out the episodes we released earlier this year. We should be releasing some more sometime soon. So if you add us as a subscription, you pick up the new ones as soon as they become available, and you can browse through the catalog. Check out the previous eps. Some good interviews in there. Use the code SUNSHINE before the end of June to save 15% off any month, off your first month or year of any Trade Ideas subscription or upgrade from standard to premium. Jamie is on Twitter. He's at QuantBot. You can also find Steve at TISteveG, who's usually the co-host on this particular day. We also have at Trade Ideas and some other handles, so do look for those. Trade Ideas Pros, the Facebook page. If you're on the Facebook, go ahead and like that. Any questions, send it to info@tradeideas.com. And we will have the recording up later on tonight or tomorrow, so stay tuned for an email tomorrow with a link to where you can find it on YouTube. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, friends. Have a good one.
Thanks everybody for popping in. Friendly reminder, the markets are closed next Monday in observance of Independence Day. All right, everybody. See you next time. Bye-bye.